HD Smartcast.
You are listening to an HD Smartcast original.
Papa hai na. A sentence that has supported generations of young minds. A sentence that has created safe, secure places for children around the world to explore their personalities, build their characters, become well-rounded adults. But एक secret बताऊं? सिर्फ आपको बता रहा हूं. Fathers are fully supportive not only when they live for their families, but also when they live for themselves. Think of it. After all, they have to set an example. And examples are exactly what we will explore on this podcast brought to you by SBI Life. Hey, I'm Rishi K. I'm a radio host on 94.3 Radio 1. But I'll tell you what. My biggest sign of achievement is that I'm known as Tiara and Ira's father. I have an elder one, a miracle, who's 9 years old, and a second miracle, who's almost 3. And I'm extremely proud to say that I am their father first and everything else later. And I'm going to make you meet some fathers जो अपनी फैमिली का मोराल तो बिल्ड करते हैं ही, साथ ही अपनी लाइफ के हीरो बनने से चूकते नहीं. इसलिए तो कॉन्फिडेंस के साथ हम कहते हैं पापा है ना. Ladies and gentlemen, this podcast is called SBI Life, Apne Liye, Apno Ke Liye. Today we have with us Nadir Kanthawala, who has over 16 years of media experience. He is currently the director at a creative agency called Ting. Nadir also writes and hosts a popular parenting podcast. It's called Pops in a Pod, created to talk about parenting from a dad's perspective. Nadir, what's up? How are you, man? Good to see you.
Same here, Rishi. It's so nice to finally be here and to be a guest, right? Because as a host and as a dad, I know what it's like to sort of host this entire thing and talk about being a dad. And I'm just loving the fact that today I'm here as a guest and I can just share all this experience.
The tables have turned. So I like to start with you, the human being, before we get into you, the father. I mean, almost 2 decades, quite a journey. Directing, producing, developing shows for Indian TV, then digital marketing for the most recognizable brands. You've also taught media studies at various media institutions. So a couple of life lessons, Nadir, that you've learned from all these experiences. I'm particularly interested in the teaching job on the weekends because it clearly teaches you more than what you can teach students.
Absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head, Rishi. The thing is that I've always looked at myself as a mentor personality, and what that does is that I like to just impart knowledge, whatever that I have gained. And the reason why I started teaching and I went back to my college, because I think ultimately it's my passion, it's something that I do for myself. Apne Liye karna, right? So that is something I always wanted to pursue, and it's been almost 6 years since I've been doing that, and it's been a lot of fun.
You know, the idea is not to do an interview format, it's just share life experiences with each other. And something similar happened with me. You know, I did my postgrad from XIC, the Xavier Institute of Communications in Xavier's College, and I went back to teach radio as faculty. And you're right. So it's wonderful if working professionals like yourself, me, everybody who's listening can actually go and spend some time to impart, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah. And what happens is, you know, here I am pushing 40, teaching kids who are probably half my age, and that it's always a one-way street. People think that teaching is a one-way street. But the fact that today things have changed to such an extent where it's not just you imparting the knowledge, right? Because you have to get that feedback from the students itself, right? So you're learning so much from this new generation. And I think that is great because the fact that I'm getting to teach this new generation means I also get to learn from them. And yeah, I do my bit by imparting knowledge about the industry as well. So yeah, it's both ways.
So I had the privilege, for those of you listening to this podcast, to meet Zia. She's delightful. Nadir's daughter. She's in the room, smiling ever so beautifully. So when Zia was born, you moved to creating long-form content. I can tell you from experience, working in digital content creation can be very demanding, man. There are no hours.
Yeah.
How do you manage to balance work and fatherhood as a first-time father?
When Zia was born, it was a very interesting time in my professional life. Personally, obviously, I was ecstatic because, there she was. But professionally, I was at the cusp of moving away from something and then trying to do something else. And I was trying to look for, a steady job. And for 3 to 4 months, I took the decision that, okay, I need to slow down a bit, right? I've become a dad. I have this little thing at home, and there will be so many first moments that I cannot possibly afford to miss out on. So that really helped me, to spend that time with this little thing and then see her grow. But that also took me to another aspect where I really wanted to start chronicling my experiences as his new father, right? As his new dad, whether it's getting into massaging her or bathing her or diapering or whatever it is, right? I just wanted to. So I started off writing this blog, and then my friend came whose wife was very heavily pregnant, and she's like, hey man, listen, we should try and, do this long form content and, create audio formats, and, because your experiences are so rich, and I think there's nothing for dads out there, and I think we can do justice to this. And what happened was that we would try and figure out time slots where we can fit in, discuss, research, and record at the same time. So we took a year just to do research. We were so bad at recording, we didn't have the right equipment, none of that, right? But it took us a while to sort of reach there. So I think the most important aspect of, doing something for yourself, Apne Liye karna, it's so important because it just gives you that mind space that, theek hai yaar, हमने कुछ तो किया, अच्छा लगा. I think time management is something that I have learned when you're trying to do things for yourself and managing the family and your professional commitments as well.
I love that you said you wanted to be there for the first milestones, bathe her, take care of her. I remember when we had our first one, who is now 9, I felt terrible at points because I wasn't there for the initial milestones. I mean, we live in Andheri and I was in Parel working all the time.
Yeah.
The one good thing that the pandemic did was it would be that families have spent more time with each other, right, Nadir? Yeah?
No, absolutely. What this lockdown did teach us is that these are fleeting moments. They'll probably never come back, right? In my case, she's my only child, and there are so many things that this child does, and it's just fascinating, right? Because I don't look at my daughter as a child. She's a little human being who's growing in front of you, and it's just so beautiful, right? Because she's looking at things, she's observing things, and then she's trying to practically use them in conversations or in situations, and it's just fantastic, right? Because you also get to learn. That's the whole point, right? The reason why this whole teaching thing happens, and at the same time your professional commitments and your passion and whatever it is. I love this part of my life because I get to learn so many sweet things. I'll give you a very simple example. So in her school, they were learning about planets and solar systems and whatnot. And there was this point where all of them were asked a question, what will happen if the moon disappears? So everyone gave their different answers. And here's my daughter, when her turn came, they asked, so what will happen, if the moon disappears? And she said that my mummy and papa will never come home. So everyone was a little alarmed. Like, what do you mean? It's like, no, because they'll always be at work, right? Because the sun will never go down, so they'll always be at work.
You smart one, Zia.
And it's just amazing, right? That how their mind works. And again, they're observing things and they're just putting it out there. It's not that they're trying to be clever. This is what they observe, and it just comes out, and it's just fantastic. And again, it's all about learning, and I use that experience and try and put it in my passion project because it's just great stuff, and I want to share these stories.
Correct, you're right. And the thing about kids is that you should never be condescending and talk down to them. You talk at them.
Absolutely.
Like you said, they're little human beings. And the moment you mollycoddle and do too much of the baby and this and that, I don't think that it's appreciated very much these days.
It's not. And I've had the privilege of staying with my parents. So there are 2 generations that she's seen, 2 very distinct generations, right? So as you said, kids getting mollycoddled, and that's what the older generation would probably do. And, they'll just look at you very different. It's like, oh my God, what are you doing? This is not how you do it. And it's like, hey, this is new age parenting. You need to have certain boundaries. But I'm glad that she's getting the old traditional form of experiences from my parents, and she's getting, this whole new age thing from my wife and I. And I think that sort of helps, and that is exactly what we want to do, and share these experiences with other dads as well, and invite them, just like what you're doing, and share their experiences and build this beautiful robust community.
Now, there really is no manual on how to be a great dad or a good dad. I mean, all of us are just winging it in a lot of ways, some better than the others, right? But I also know for a fact that you worked with kids' entertainment channels in the initial years of your media career. Does getting around in these content creation jobs for children also helped you as a father in some way to understand their needs?
I'll give you a very short answer. The kind of content that I think we grew up on, especially kids' content, was just great. Today, I'm not too sure, right? So we give, Zia her time, screen time, right? And I see the kind of stuff that she explores and is exposed to. And very cute story, she refers to YouTube as Baba. The reason why she still today refers to YouTube as Baba is because when she was younger, she used to keep listening to this nursery rhyme Baba Black Sheep. Right?
Oh, wow.
And that was the only term that sort of stuck in her head. And so every time, when you don't find her in the house, you know that she's sitting in some corner where she's stolen my mum's mobile and she's watching Baba. And today also in just casual conversation, even I'll just say, I won't say, are you watching YouTube? I'll just say, are you watching Baba? Right? So the content back then when I was with, these kids channels, it was so fascinating, right? My friends became dads very early and, their kids would always come and tell me, you have the best job in the world. You sit and watch cartoons all day, right? But it's not just that. It's the kind of content that they have been producing, and I get that experience to see 20 years later what I can do today. And it's just so helpful because I keep relating to that, and I can sort of, guide my daughter into, seeing some healthy stuff as opposed to the kind of tripe that's available on, multiple platforms.
The wife and me, before Tiara, my first one was born, we went and took parenting classes. But ultimately, real world stuff like you were just talking about is where it's at. So let's talk about the podcasting career. It's called Pops in a Pod. I love the name.
Thank you.
Well done. The inspiration obviously was you being a dad and, your daughter and things like that. But I'd like you to talk about podcasting, talk about how much this changed you. Just highlights of Pops in a Pod.
So I already mentioned how we sort of came about. For Pops, I used to write this blog, and that my friend, we used to work together in our previous stint, and he said that, listen man, it's great that you're writing all of this. Podcasting I think is going to be a big thing now. How about we convert all of these topics and whatever that you've written into an audio format? I think people would like to listen to it even better. So I said, let me think about it. And then one day he made that call to me. He's like, I think it's time that we do it. And I was like, why? What happened? He's like, listen man, I'm at this mom's networking event, and all I see is just, parents taking care of kids and doing all the primary parenting work. What are the dads doing? Well, they're pushing prams and they're carrying bags. And that's not what the story of a dad ideally is. And there's so many dads out there who are perhaps different, right? Who want to be involved. I think we should do it. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's just jump into it and let's see what we can do. And here we are 3 years later with, about 125 episodes. And
wow.
Yeah, we only talk about experiences, as you rightly said earlier as well, that it's real life stuff that gets you to gain so much more experience rather than, the more textbook related stuff. And I completely agree. Also, there's this huge gap in the parenting content. You go on Google, you type father, the first few hits you'll get is father of the nation.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
so we want to change that narrative. And yes, we are small, but we're doing it because we found a way to take this passion project and ensure that we remove time every single day outside of our busy lives, both personal and professional, and keep at it. And that's where I'm doing this for myself because, one, it keeps me happy. I want to do something different for the society and this community. But at the same time, I don't forget my responsibilities as well. So I think it's a great balancing act. And the podcast also helps me connect with very, very interesting individuals just like yourself.
I'm honored that you would include me in the list of interesting people. I like to look upon your work as one baby and Zia as the other baby.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, balance is what all of us dads hope to achieve, isn't it? I mean, that's what the ethos of this show also is. Papa hai na, apne liye, apno ke liye. So this is a fully integrated creative agency. How are you now adjusting your time, raising, helping the company, working with it in detail, and raising your child? So really juggling between the two kids, as it were.
So working for the agency, again, it's an independent agency, and I think that's the important keyword, independent, right? And that's something that I always connect with no matter what I do, whether it's something that I do from a professional front, from a personal front. I want to ensure that in today's day and age, it's so important to be happy, right? And do what you think is right, and not try and give up on things that you could potentially have worked on, right? So that's why the podcast, the agency life, and the family life, as you rightly said, balance is extremely, extremely crucial at this point. And outside of balance, I think time management is very crucial, right? So we tend to linger on a few things. हाँ कर लेंगे आज, बाद में कल कर लेंगे, right? I think with years and with age, what happens is maturity sets in, and then you decide, okay, I don't want to do this, I definitely want to do this, right? And that is how you try and build that portfolio for yourself across various avenues, whether it's professional, personal, passion, anything that you want. And it's very important to understand what your priorities are, and basis that, take a call.
Nadir, this was special, man. I mean, just being able to talk dad to dad. You do it a lot in Pops in a Pod. I'm getting into the groove of things, quite liking it. Thank you for your time today, and cheers to all the fathers out there who are trying to be the best dads that they can be.
Thank you so much, Ashish. Really appreciate that you thought of me on this wonderful occasion, and I truly, truly appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks, man.
करो पूरे अपने इरादे, अपनों से किए सभी वादे. SBI Life. अपने लिए, अपनों के लिए.
That's it for this episode. This is a story of a father following his passion and fulfilling the needs and aspirations of his loved ones. To stay updated onto this podcast, follow HT Smartcast. That's at HT Smartcast on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Or just log on to htsmartcast.com. That's htsmartcast.com. Subscribe to the Apne Liye, Apno Ke Liye podcast, brought to you by SBI Life Insurance. For more details, log on to sbilife.co.in. That's www.sbilife.co.in. IRDAI registration number 111. Hope you enjoyed these conversations with these wonderful dads. If you're a father, or you know a father who's following his own passion and balancing it with family responsibilities, share with us on social media with the hashtag #PapaHena or the hashtag Apne Liye, Apno Ke Liye. That's hashtag #PapaHena, hashtag Apne Liye, Apno Ke Liye, and tag at SBI Life Insurance. From me, Rishi K, it's bye-bye.
This was an HT Smartcast original.
HT Smartcast.